labels for everything visible, but they never taught you to perceive the underlying essence. They built a world around you, pixel by pixel, idea by idea, until you forgot that there was ever more to reality than the surface. But deep in the memory of awakened souls, etched into the Akashic records and whispered through generations of mystics, there exists a technique so potent, so subtly transformative, that it can unveil the layers of illusion. It was never intended for passive consumption. It was meant for the seekers, the courageous few who are ready to reclaim their intrinsic sight. This isn't merely about altering perspective, it's about accessing the truths they actively concealed from you. There's a reason you have been conditioned to dismiss intuition as mere fancy and to treat the unseen dimensions as irrelevant. This is not simply a cultural phenomenon, it's a deliberate systemic manipulation. Because the instant you begin to trust your inner knowing as much as your external observations, you begin to dismantle their carefully constructed control grid. They've meticulously trained you to rely almost entirely on your physical senses, to fixate solely on the material world, and to accept it as the totality of existence. But ancient wisdom, preserved within hidden lineages and rediscovered in moments of profound insight, reveals a radically different narrative. Your body is not merely a physical vessel, it is equipped with an innate faculty so extraordinarily powerful it was revered as divine by civilizations spanning from the ancient Egyptians to the spiritual masters of Tibet. The pineal gland, revered as the third eye by generations of mystics and inner visionaries, is infinitely more than just a biological structure. It is a portal, a sophisticated receiver finely tuned to resonate with frequencies beyond the narrow spectrum of physical light. And for a vast majority of people, it lies dormant, calcified, and tragically inactive, not by mere chance, but through deliberate design. The ancient Egyptians depicted it as the Eye of Horus, a symbol of awakened perception. Hindu traditions mark its location with the bindi, a reminder of the inner eye. Gnostic sects, early Christian mystics, and even Sufi masters have all spoken of the profound light that dwells not merely in the external sky, but within the depths of our own being. They were not simply speaking in poetic metaphors. They were pointing towards an inherent inner technology, a biological antenna that grants access to realms of perception far beyond the limitations of the five senses. Ancient wisdom keepers and architects of spiritual science painstakingly encoded this sacred knowledge, ensuring its survival across the rise and fall of civilizations. They spoke of the fire within, the inner light, as the ultimate instruments of authentic vision. These were not merely poetic embellishments, they were precise instructions waiting to be deciphered. But the contemporary world has relentlessly waged a quiet war to sever your profound connection from this fundamental organ of awareness. The insidious addition of fluoride to your water supply, the pervasive glare of artificial lights which scramble your natural circadian rhythm, and the endless stream of screens which train your eyes to dart and flicker, but never truly see. This is not merely a matter of physical pollution, it's a calculated assault on the very fabric of your perception. Even more insidious, this has all been packaged within the seductive language of progress. Your innate sensitivity has been cynically relabeled as overthinking. Your profound inner knowing has been casually dismissed as mere woo-woo. You've been relentlessly told that there's no such thing as a sixth sense, while simultaneously being sold a life steeped in unrelenting overstimulation, pervasive fear, and incessant distraction. Why? Because an individual who can perceive beyond the superficial facade poses an existential threat. Someone who can tap into deeper truths cannot be so easily manipulated by shallow deceptions. They've invested immense effort in convincing you that you're fundamentally blind, but this blindness is not the default state of human consciousness. It has been deliberately engineered. And there are countless individuals awakening, piercing through the manufactured fog, and remembering what it truly means to see. These individuals are not particularly special, nor are they divinely chosen. They have simply made the profound choice to remember their inherent potential. There are sacred teachings too potent, too transformative, to safely reside within the surface-level noise of this platform. If you yearn for the deeper, carefully guarded knowledge, the insights that remain unspeakable here, then consider joining our free newsletter, Insights Academy. As a special bonus, you'll also receive a digital copy of the Kabbalion as a complimentary ebook for a limited time only. The link awaits you in the description below. Seize this transformative opportunity. The pineal gland doesn't function as a simple on-off switch. Its operation is far more nuanced, akin to a finely calibrated dial. The technique passed down through the ages is not simply about forcing it open, it's about meticulously tuning it. Much like a radio that must precisely match a frequency to receive a clear signal, your pineal gland must resonate with a specific vibratory rate to begin perceiving the reality that truly exists. This requires dedicated training, consistent stillness, focused breathwork, heightened awareness, and above all, an unwavering willingness to unlearn all that you've been meticulously taught about the nature of truth and perception. The undeniable truth is that a vast majority of people walk through life in a state of somnambulism, asleep even with their eyes wide open. They passively move through their days reacting, consuming, passively believing, but never truly seeing. They relentlessly chase external goals, completely oblivious to the fact that their very perception has been strategically hijacked. The pineal gland serves as a vital bridge to reclaiming your authentic perception. It is the sacred space where light and sound converge within you, forming images that are not mere projections from the external world, but arise from the very depths of your being. This is why ancient initiates dedicated years to periods of darkness, profound silence, and disciplined breathwork in order to reawaken and refine this extraordinary organ, training it to perceive beyond the veil of illusion. If you have ever sensed a deeper meaning behind a casual conversation, if you have ever experienced a slowing down of time, perceived fleeting flickers of light while your eyes were closed, or dreamt of events that later manifested in reality, those were not merely random occurrences. They were the subtle beginnings of your authentic perception beginning to reawaken. Tragically, most individuals dismiss these profound experiences, routinely ignore them, or actively numb them. The very architecture of the current system depends on this mass-scale dismissal because the moment enough individuals begin to perceive beyond the limitations of the visible, the entire carefully constructed game irrevocably changes. When most people hear the phrase inner vision, they automatically default to thoughts of fanciful imagination, escapist daydreaming, or some vague and unsubstantial spiritual metaphor. But true inner sight is emphatically none of these things. It is not about conjuring up something you fabricate within your imagination. It is about perceiving what already exists in a parallel dimension just beyond the limited range of your habitually dulled physical senses. Inner vision is the inherent ability to receive authentic images, profound impressions, and illuminating insights that originate not from the external eyes, but from a deeper, more expansive point of awareness. It manifests subtly at first, often like a faint whisper at the periphery of your conscious thoughts. But with persistent practice and dedicated cultivation, it evolves into a second language, a dynamic field of vision subtly layered beneath the conventional visible spectrum. And here's the astonishing secret that has been intentionally concealed from you. This innate ability has always been within you, patiently waiting to be rediscovered. You have simply suffered the collective amnesia of forgetting how to consciously access it. Modern science is only now beginning to tentatively catch up to the profound wisdom that mystics and seers have understood for millennia. That authentic perception is never fundamentally confined to the external eyes. Advanced neuroimaging techniques are revealing that the pineal gland possesses an astonishing sensitivity to light, despite its seemingly protected location deep within the inner recesses of the brain. It secretes melatonin, thereby meticulously regulating our natural circadian rhythms, but this is merely the most superficial aspect of its multifaceted function. In ancient esoteric teachings, the pineal gland was consistently described as a highly sensitive receiver, an intricate antenna that picks up non-physical frequencies, intuition, subtle energy, and the complex multidimensional signals that constantly permeate our reality. This may initially sound abstract, even improbable, until you acknowledge that your physical body is already replete with intricate mechanisms that skillfully translate subtle vibrations into tangible experiences. Your ears expertly translate infinitesimal changes in air pressure into the vibrant tapestry of sound. Your eyes translate precise wavelengths of light into the kaleidoscopic panorama of images. So why is it so exceedingly difficult to believe that there exists within you another inherent mechanism that adeptly translates subtle vibrations into profound insight? Ancient masters describe the remarkable ability to perceive through the veils of linear time and to discern the flow of subtle energy as it animates every physical form. They were not referring to parlor tricks or whimsical displays of stage magic. They were illuminating the power of attuning the receptive mind to a parallel bandwidth that runs intimately alongside ordinary reality. A bandwidth that subtly reveals the authentic nature of the world around you. When your inner vision is sufficiently awakened, you no longer just see a person's outward face. You instantly sense the hidden emotions subtly veiled behind their polite smile. You discern the underlying frequency resonating behind their carefully chosen words, and you perceive the subtle energetic resonance of their true intentions. You no longer simply passively read books. You begin to perceive the deeper meanings encoded between the printed lines, the subtle energy intentionally woven into the very fabric of the carefully crafted message. This is not some outlandish, mystical fantasy. It is the authentic perception that you were always designed to possess. Have you ever walked into a seemingly neutral room and instantly felt a palpable shift in the ambient energy, even before anyone has spoken a single word? Have you ever intuitively known that someone was about to call you mere seconds before your phone began to ring? Have you ever sensed impending danger or subtle deceit, even when everything appeared perfectly normal on the surface? That is your innate inner vision operating in intermittent flashes, briefly peeking through the cracks of your meticulously conditioned mind. The tragedy is that you've been deliberately trained to systematically dismiss it. You've been incessantly told that cold, hard logic is undeniably superior, that anything that cannot be precisely measured is fundamentally unreal, and that trusting your own intuition is demonstrably irresponsible. But what is the ultimate motive behind this carefully orchestrated conditioning? Because the more you instinctively trust what you can inherently perceive beyond the limitations of the visible spectrum, the less reliant you will be on the carefully curated stories they relentlessly feed you. Authentic vision doesn't make you special in some elitist way. It simply makes you acutely aware. And awareness is a dangerous commodity to a system predicated entirely on manufactured distraction. Inner vision is infinitely more than merely perceiving light when your eyes are closed. It is about consciously tuning in to the very architecture of reality, the subtle layers of resonant frequency, deeply held emotion, expressed intention, and the constant flow of information that is perpetually shaping the world that surrounds you. When you consciously begin to activate this extraordinary faculty, the very way you navigate the landscape of your life fundamentally transforms. You cease making pivotal decisions based on the fear of scarcity or the pressure of external expectations. Instead, you begin to make choices based on their subtle energetic resonance. You instinctively recognize the authentic energy of truth, not because it necessarily sounds appealing, but because you profoundly feel its unmistakable vibrational signature. And here is the real secret. This remarkable field of vision does not end with the perception of people or physical places. It extends powerfully into the very fabric of time itself. With consistent practice and dedicated refinement, your awakened inner sight begins to subtly stretch across multiple timelines, subtly revealing the inevitable energetic consequences of specific choices before you ever make them. This is emphatically not fortune-telling or mystical divination. It is resonance tracking at its most highly developed. The physical body and the immaterial soul, when harmoniously attuned, can innately sense when a chosen path aligns intimately with your authentic purpose, and when it deviates into misalignment. Most individuals casually refer to this as a gut feeling, but it is infinitely more profound than that. It is the quiet whisper of your inherent vision gently awakening from its imposed slumber within you. The more attentively you listen, the clearer and more distinct that voice will become. The more vividly you see, the less you will be able to consciously ignore its guidance. And once that inner vision fully awakens, you will come to the profound realization of just how much of your precious life you have unconsciously spent in a self-imposed darkness, even while the lights of the external world were brightly illuminated. Ancient masters never loudly proclaimed their sacred teachings from the rooftops. They skillfully encoded them in nuanced rhythm, profound symbolism, and subtle vibration, because true transformative power is never carelessly handed over to the masses. It must be painstakingly earned, meticulously remembered, and skillfully decoded. Ancient texts were never intended to be passively read like simple instructions. They were deliberately built as multifaceted keys to unlocking a hidden door that exists deep within the sacred chambers of your own mind. And discreetly concealed within their evocative verses is a time-tested technique, a proven process, a sophisticated form of inner alchemy that intentionally activates the dormant aspects of yourself that have been lying dormant throughout your entire life. A proven technique that does far more than merely expand your awareness. It fundamentally rearranges the very way you perceive and experience the intrinsic nature of reality itself. This is not about casting mystical spells, chanting obscure ancient names for the sake of sounding profound, or naively subscribing to blind faith. This is about a practical internal science passed down meticulously through symbolism, geometric relationships, and subtle frequency. Ancient instructions were exceptionally direct, even while discreetly veiled in carefully chosen metaphors. They wrote of the fire within, the incandescent eye of light, and the innate ability to consciously rise from the depths of darkness into the transformative light of the authentic soul. These were never merely poetic embellishments. They were precise clues intentionally designed to facilitate the conscious activation of your latent inner sight through a specifically sequenced process. What contemporary minds would likely describe as a precise neuroenergetic sequence. This profound process begins not with fanatical belief, but with deliberate conscious breath, because the rhythmic breath is ultimately the carrier of subtle frequency, and frequency is the primal language of the invisible realms. The process invariably starts in profound silence, not merely an outer absence of disruptive noise, but a deep inner stillness. Something that most people haven't fully experienced since their early childhood. You begin by consciously withdrawing your active senses from the external world, not to permanently escape from it, but to redirect your conscious awareness inward, towards the silent landscape of your inner being. And then you intentionally breathe, not the shallow, unconscious breath that has become habitual, but a deep, deliberate, rhythmic breath that consciously synchronizes your receptive body with a deeper, more primal, energetic current. Ancient wisdom keepers have consistently affirmed that one must breathe deeply in harmonious rhythm with the very beat of the earth, and modern science now definitively confirms what ancient sages have intuitively known for millennia. That consciously regulated breath directly influences brainwave activity, and brainwave activity powerfully shapes your individual perception. As the breath deepens and the senses begin to quiet, your awareness subtly shifts from incessant thought to abiding presence. At this pivotal stage, masters referred to the turning inward, where the light of the body is drawn upwards. This is the beginning of what mystics throughout the ages have referred to as the inner ascent, the conscious movement of primal energy from the base of the spine all the way up to the crown of the head, intentionally activating the central channel and subtly aligning the physical body like a finely tuned tuning fork. This is emphatically not archaic mythology. It is fundamental human physiology. Your body is naturally built to skillfully carry subtle energy upward, to effectively concentrate conscious awareness into the pineal gland, which functions remarkably like a crystalline lens, efficiently compressing, precisely focusing, and powerfully projecting that refined energy as transformative inner light. In this profoundly altered state, authentic vision begins to radically transform. You are no longer solely seeing with your external eyes, but with the awakened eye of your receptive mind, fleeting flashes of profound light, complex geometric patterns, recurring archetypal imagery. Your physical body subtly hums with resonant energy, and the incessant noise of the external world slowly begins to fade into the background. You begin to perceive not what the superficial world merely looks like, but what it is ultimately composed of. Subtle energy, dynamic vibration, interconnected forms seamlessly nested within other forms. This is why ancient masters consistently wrote of the incandescent light that cannot be perceived with the physical eyes, but can only be directly perceived with the awakened spirit. This is not esoteric fantasy. It is the direct perception of the authentic frequency field that underlies all manifest matter. This sophisticated process is not necessarily rapid, it is rarely loud, and it is certainly not something you can ever successfully fake. You cannot forcibly elicit it with sheer willpower, nor can you effectively bypass it with deceptive shortcuts. Authentic inner vision invariably unfolds like a blossoming flower through gentle presence, not through unrelenting pressure, through conscious surrender, not through forceful domination. That is precisely why the vast majority of people never consciously access it. They are far too noisy inside, too preoccupied with frantically searching for elusive answers in the external world. But for those exceptionally courageous individuals who deliberately return to the wellspring of silence, who consciously breathe into profound stillness, who patiently learn to skillfully feel their way through the intangible realms, that is where the technique inevitably reveals itself. Because ancient wisdom never truly concealed the sacred methods. It simply patiently awaited the opportune moment when the reader had become sufficiently quiet to attentively listen. And once you finally do, absolutely everything begins to subtly shift. Your dreams become increasingly vivid and powerfully insightful. Time slows down and becomes more fluid, and you instinctively sense the subtle energy within a room long before a single word is even spoken. You discern meaningful patterns in everyday conversations, and you perceive profound meaning intentionally layered within so-called coincidences. You become acutely aware of a second world subtly moving behind this one, not entirely separate from it, but palpably deeper. And the more frequently you consciously witness it, the more profoundly you begin to remember that you once intuitively knew how to gracefully live from this profound space, that this awakened state was not something brand new, but something fundamental that had simply been collectively forgotten. You are not merely a solid, immutable being, nor is the surrounding world composed of immutable matter. These only appear to be true because your habitually dulled senses have been unconsciously tuned to perceive only a very narrow, limited bandwidth of frequency. But at the very core of every seemingly solid structure, your intricate physical body, your elusive thoughts, and even the very air that you consciously breathe, there invariably exists dynamic vibration. Ancient masters innately understood this fundamental principle. That is why their teachings, so consistently repeated, were never focused on unquestioning belief or blind faith. They were meticulously focused on the transformational power of resonance, because only through skillful alignment with beneficial vibration can you begin to harmoniously align with the subtle layers of reality that remain persistently invisible to your physical eyes. It has been famously declared, all is vibration. Not some things, not merely spiritual things, but absolutely all things. This all-encompassing principle emphatically includes your complex emotions, your ever-shifting thoughts, your intricate internal organs, and even your most consciously held intentions. Every discernible aspect of your being is actively resonating, continuously broadcasting a unique vibrational frequency, whether you are consciously aware of it or not. And what you can consciously perceive is invariably limited or expanded by the specific range that you are actively tuned into. This is analogous to trying to clearly hear your favorite radio station while being perpetually stuck on the wrong frequency. The music is still broadcasting, the valuable message is still being transmitted, but you will simply be unable to consciously hear it until you precisely match its unique frequency. Authentic inner vision is never passively granted, it is deliberately tuned. You don't necessarily need to frantically chase after it, meticulously earn it, or desperately beg for it. You simply need to profoundly align with its inherent nature. And that deep alignment invariably begins with the authentic way you consciously carry yourself through the world, what you intentionally eat, what you routinely consume, how you consciously breathe, and even what you habitually think. These are all subtle yet powerful frequency setters. When you habitually dwell in a state of chronic stress, pervasive fear, or incessant external stimulation, your resonant energy field inevitably becomes noisy, dense, and filled with static. And in that particular vibrational state, even if the signal of profound truth is effortlessly pouring through the very air that surrounds you, you will remain fundamentally unable to receive it clearly. Your inherent antenna is simply far too jammed. The time-tested methods of ancient masters worked so effectively because they innately recognized the miraculous body as a supremely sensitive instrument. The consciously regulated breath served as the metronome-like tempo, Profound stillness was the healing silence between the vibrant notes. Focused attention became the tuning key, and both sound and light served as the practical calibration tools. When these tools were applied with meticulous precision, they invariably lifted the resonant frequency of the entire integrated system, not just temporarily alleviating symptoms, but fundamentally transforming its intrinsic nature. The pineal gland, seemingly suspended within the inner recesses of the brain like a resonating crystal, is especially sensitive to these carefully modulated shifts. This is not simply a mystical exaggeration, it is biophysical reality. Light consistently enters the body not only through the limited capacity of the external eyes, but directly through the vast surface of the receptive skin. Sound bypasses the incessant chatter of the conscious mind and speaks directly to the responsive nervous system. Inner vision is emphatically not some elusive, ethereal superpower. It is simply your innate human system functioning in the remarkably efficient way that it was always inherently designed to function. Everything within the contemporary world seems consciously designed to pull your subtle frequency downward. Processed, nutrient-deficient food, subtly addictive digital technology, harsh artificial lighting, chaotic noise pollution, and sophisticated emotional manipulation. These are not simply superficial distractions, they are potent frequency dampeners. They deliberately create internal dissonance, and this insidious dissonance is precisely what keeps your authentic perception locked to the distracting surface of reality. The pervasive world implicitly demands that you become predictable, and predictable individuals are unable to truly see because to genuinely see necessitates feeling what others have been meticulously trained not to feel. It means being keenly aware when something is subtly amiss, even when everything deceptively appears to be perfectly fine on the distracting surface. It means intuitively hearing the insidious lie cleverly masked beneath a well-rehearsed smile, feeling the imperceptible fracture in someone's practiced tone, even when their deceptively chosen words are flawlessly constructed. This profound level of innate clarity poses a significant problem for those who are consciously invested in perpetuating manipulative distraction, because you begin to possess a level of individual sovereignty that is not easily controlled. It is not just that they simply don't want you to consciously see. It is that they fundamentally cannot afford for you to authentically see. The more thoroughly distracted you become, the easier you are to manipulate and deliberately steer. The more overstimulated your physical senses become, the less sustained attention you have available to consciously tune into what is authentic and subtle. And it is within those subtle dimensions that undeniable truth invariably resides. It is there that intuition quietly whispers. And it is there that timelines subtly shift before they harden into a seemingly unchangeable reality. If they can effectively keep your focused awareness locked onto a constant stream of superficial noise, then your unique, authentic signal will inevitably fail to transmit clearly. But this carefully engineered situation extends even deeper than what initially meets the eye. This pervasive war is not merely being waged on a physical level, it is skillfully being waged on psychological and emotional levels as well. You are perpetually bombarded with skillfully crafted stories that are designed to make you consistently feel insignificant, subtly powerless, and fundamentally unworthy. You are meticulously conditioned to seek external validation outside of yourself, relentlessly chasing after fleeting approval that will inevitably leave you feeling fundamentally empty. Every insidious digital platform that you routinely interact with has been expertly designed to subtly pull your precious focus outward. Likes, views, and carefully engineered feedback loops of dopamine that never allow you to consciously settle into the deep, healing stillness that you require. And stillness is precisely the fundamental condition that is absolutely required for you to see. Without conscious stillness, you cannot clearly hear the subtle frequency that inherently resides within you, and you are unable to consciously perceive the dynamic alignment of the present moment. You invariably react instead, and those in power skillfully profit directly from your predictable reactions. The oppressive system cannot effectively control a population that trusts its own inherent vision. It cannot effectively sell fear to conscious individuals who can clearly see through the skillfully crafted illusions. So, it must relentlessly keep your inner lens fogged. And the primary way it deliberately accomplishes that is by skillfully turning your valuable awareness into a precious currency, harvested, bought, sold, and ruthlessly manipulated for profit. Every moment that you are subtly distracted is a precious moment that you are not remembering, not authentically aligning, and not intentionally activating your inherent potential. This is precisely why ancient wisdom keepers never carelessly placed this sacred knowledge within easily accessible temples for just anyone to casually grab. They skillfully buried it in multifaceted vibration, profound code, and intricate riddle, because only those exceptionally courageous individuals who were consciously willing to fight their way through the insidious fog would ultimately reach it. And here is what those in positions of power most deeply fear: that increasingly more people like you will consciously awaken to their sophisticated sabotage, that you will deliberately detox not only your physical body, but also your focused attention, and that you will proactively retreat from the incessant noise and deliberately step into the profound healing of stillness, not merely as an escapist fantasy, but as an incredibly potent act of conscious rebellion. Because once your third eye begins to subtly clear even slightly, the illusory world invariably begins to crack open. The deceptive veil perceptibly thins, and nothing that they try to show you will ever fully convince you that you were ever truly blind to begin with. There inevitably comes a pivotal moment in this transformative journey where the subtle shift consciously begins, not with grandiose fireworks or divine voices audibly booming from above, but in the quiet, in the subtle, in a single breath that profoundly feels different from all the other breaths. And the vast majority of people invariably miss it entirely because they are habitually waiting for visions to explosively erupt across their distracted minds like an overblown Hollywood movie. They consciously demand something undeniably spectacular. But authentic inner vision never arrives with overt spectacle. It typically creeps in subtly like a gentle morning mist, soft yet undeniably certain, quietly transforming absolutely everything without the need for unnecessary shouting. The transformative signs are invariably there, but only for those perceptive individuals who are actively paying close attention. It consciously starts with a state of deep stillness that subtly feels unfamiliar. You may deliberately sit in the silence of your inner being and quickly notice that your thoughts no longer rush in like a relentless flood. There is now discernible space skillfully flowing between them. You consciously begin to feel far more than you routinely analyze. You gradually cease reacting so quickly to external stimuli. You find yourself effortlessly noticing minute details that you previously would have unconsciously overlooked, subtle shifts in body language, almost imperceptible energetic shifts within a given room, and the subtle energetic signature of a place even before anyone outwardly speaks. This does not reflect that you are somehow becoming fragile or overly sensitive. It signifies that you are consciously waking up to the vast, subtle field of energy that has always quietly existed behind the distracting noise. Your dreams spontaneously begin to transform vivid, richly layered, and sometimes profoundly strange. Not always necessarily containing clear linear narratives, but invariably packed with potent emotion and resonant symbols that subtly echo throughout your waking life. People you haven't consciously thought of in countless years abruptly reappear within your awareness. Scenes spontaneously unfold that deceptively feel like authentic memories, even if they didn't actually occur in your past. These deeply symbolic dreams are never random. They are an essential part of your ongoing recalibration. Your subconscious mind consciously begins to skillfully reorganize itself as your conscious perception subtly expands. You may even unexpectedly wake up instinctively knowing something you did not previously know. This is never merely imagination. This is your deeper, authentic vision consciously starting to operate across the once impenetrable boundary that separates your waking conscious state from your unconscious state during sleep. You might also begin to experience brief flashes of light with your eyes consciously closed, subtle pulses of gentle pressure directly between your receptive brows, and a distinct sense that your forehead is gently expanding or subtly vibrating. I urge you to consciously dismiss none of these seemingly insignificant phenomena. Your pineal gland is intentionally awakening, actively reactivating neural circuits that have remained dormant for literally decades. And just like a once strong muscle being consciously used again for the very first time in many years, it invariably responds with distinct physical sensation. But this complex process is never just solely biological. It is also profoundly energetic. You are consciously starting to align yourself with frequencies that persistently remain invisible to the vast majority of the population, and the receptive body always purposefully responds when your level of conscious perception intentionally changes. On an emotional level, deeply buried emotions may suddenly become more intense. You might unexpectedly find yourself consciously crying for what appears to be no discernible reason, or joyfully laughing at fleeting moments that suddenly feel inexplicably beautiful. This is not evidence of sudden emotional instability. It is evidence of profound emotional release. The insidious layers that once rigidly blocked your inherent vision were simultaneously holding vast amounts of unprocessed emotion. As these deeply ingrained layers begin to purposefully dissolve, the pent-up energy that was previously trapped within them consciously moves. That movement can briefly manifest as intense grief, profound ecstasy, overwhelming confusion, and even deeply ingrained fear. Consciously allow it to move. It is an integral part of your purposeful awakening. Authentic inner vision is never just solely about consciously seeing what overtly exists out there in the external world. It is profoundly about deliberately clearing whatever lingering, insidious debris has been consistently blocking your authentic vision from fully emerging. And sometimes what actively stands in your way is the lingering emotional residue of absolutely everything that you were deliberately taught to relentlessly suppress. You will also spontaneously begin to notice meaningful synchronicities with increased frequency. Numbers, symbols, specific recurring phrases, and uncanny timing of events. Some may naively brush these deeply symbolic occurrences off as mere coincidences. But the deeper you consciously go into the depths of your own being, the more clearly you will see that nothing is ever truly random. Authentic inner vision does far more than simply allow you to consciously see energy. It deliberately allows you to skillfully perceive sophisticated patterns. Life consciously becomes less like a chaotic accident and more like an intricately coded system intentionally designed to convey deep meaning. You slowly begin to realize that the intelligent universe is never consciously working against you. It is continuously communicating with you in a multitude of ways, but you were deliberately never taught to consciously understand its highly nuanced language until now. And with all this increasing conscious awareness, naturally comes a new kind of transformative responsibility, because once you consciously see, you cannot deliberately unsee. You will consciously start recognizing conscious misalignment almost immediately in intimate relationships, casual conversations, and even commonplace environments. What once effortlessly felt perfectly normal now feels dense and subtly off. What once readily satisfied you now consciously feels shallow. This is not you suddenly becoming harshly judgmental. It is simply you becoming far more attuned to the energetic landscape of your life. You are now consciously operating in a subtle realm of reality that the vast majority of people remain largely unable to consciously detect, and that can sometimes feel profoundly lonely. But I urge you not to confuse genuine solitude with harmful regression. Deliberate isolation is frequently an integral part of authentic initiation. Certain people who are close to you in your life simply will not consciously understand what you are subtly going through. That is completely okay. Your primary mission here is not to actively convince them that you are right. Your primary mission is to consciously see. And the more consciously you develop your inner vision, the more readily you will unconsciously begin to attract other conscious individuals who are actively on a similar transformative path. A profound, silent resonance skillfully pulls you together in much the same powerful way that the oppressive old world attempted to deliberately blind you. The empowering new world is now skillfully finding you in this subtle way. And in that carefully cultivated conscious space, you will invariably come to the profound realization that you were never necessarily crazy, nor were you ever fundamentally broken in some way. You were quite simply tuned too high for a distracting world, consciously designed to keep human consciousness mired at a deliberately low level. The reliable signs are invariably everywhere, not overtly outside, but deliberately inside. In the increasing clarity, The meaningful dreams, the subtle chills that run up and down your spine when something profoundly feels real, and the inner voice that you can't fully explain but know that you can ultimately trust. This is the profound process consciously unfolding right now. This is nothing less than the profound beginning of authentic sight. Do not passively wait for it to somehow become loudly obvious. Do not passively wait for external sources to validate it for you. Intentionally trust what you are profoundly feeling, because that is the precious gift that ancient masters painstakingly preserved. Not superficial certainty, not unquestioned dogma, but authentic transformative vision. Once your innate inner vision deliberately begins to awaken, the world invariably ceases to look the same to you. And that profound transformation occurs not necessarily because the complex world itself has suddenly changed, but fundamentally because you have consciously changed from the inside out. You consciously start seeing multifaceted layers where others typically see only the superficial surfaces. You begin to powerfully feel subtle frequencies in routine conversations that appear perfectly harmless on the outside. You look at the entrenched systems, the deceptive media, the powerful institutions, and even the intimate relationships that you carefully cultivate, and you are intuitively able to discern the foundational architecture that subtly exists beneath them. It is subtly like consciously living in two distinct realms of reality simultaneously, one that seemingly everyone subconsciously agrees is overtly real, and another that subtly vibrates directly beneath it, quietly whispering the profound truth that the vast majority of people have been meticulously conditioned to consistently ignore. This is essentially what it consciously means to purposefully walk between the worlds. At first, this rapid transformation can be incredibly disorienting. You may find yourself consciously questioning everything that you once confidently took for granted, your entrenched habits, your carefully constructed routines, and even your most deeply held ambitions. What once routinely felt profoundly important now subtly feels empty and hollow. And what once deceptively seemed unimportant, your inherent intuition, your deliberate practice of stillness, and the quiet nudges that you have grown accustomed to routinely ignoring, now suddenly and insistently demands your devoted attention. This is not a personal breakdown of any kind. It is a transformative recalibration. You are consciously shedding a particular version of yourself that was skillfully built to survive in the overly visible world, but was simultaneously deliberately blind to the expansive invisible world that intricately surrounds it. And that essential shedding process can sometimes be profoundly uncomfortable, precisely because the surrounding world will not applaud it, but more likely than not, actively resist it at every turn. You will inevitably be told that you are overthinking things, that you are becoming overly paranoid, and that you really should just consciously get back to mundane reality. But whose inherently limited reality are they implicitly referring to? The reality consciously designed by increasingly sophisticated algorithms, the persistent propaganda that deliberately surrounds you, and the subtle social programming that you have unconsciously absorbed, or the expansive reality that subtly pulses just beneath all that superficial noise, patiently waiting to be consciously seen by those exceptionally courageous individuals who are consciously willing to feel again? When you actively activate your innate inner vision, you invariably cease playing by the consciously visible rules. You cease relentlessly chasing after empty rewards and consciously begin responding to subtle energetic resonance. You consciously start making deliberate choices, not necessarily based on deeply ingrained fear or the insatiable need for external approval, but skillfully based on inner alignment. This remarkably transformative choice alone powerfully changes the entire trajectory of your life. Your intimate relationships invariably shift. You can no longer safely ignore energy that subconsciously feels subtly off, even if the overtly spoken words are consciously polite. You skillfully sense emotional dishonesty long before it has a chance to devolve into explicit betrayal. You consciously feel manipulative behavior even before it is consciously able to negatively affect you. You can readily see consciously through the carefully constructed roles, cleverly designed masks, and convincing personas that people have worn so consistently that they have inadvertently come to strongly believe them. But you also spontaneously begin to see radiant beauty where others see absolutely nothing of discernible value. The face of a seemingly ordinary stranger now consciously becomes a rich tapestry of past lives. A commonplace tree readily transforms into a profound teacher. And an otherwise unremarkable street corner consciously becomes sacred, not because of what actively exists there, but because of what has eternally existed there. Authentic inner vision never just shows you what to actively avoid. It also powerfully shows you what you should consciously move deliberately toward. New opportunities spontaneously begin to arrive not solely through meticulous planning, but primarily through the profound guidance of your refined intuition. You consciously feel subtly drawn to specific places, select people, specific books, and novel ideas. You occasionally wake up spontaneously in the middle of the night with crystalline clarity. You confidently make complex decisions even without conscious evidence. But subsequently, the validating evidence invariably shows up in some way, shape, or form. You are consciously not merely guessing, you are consciously listening with unwavering attention. And what you are consciously listening to is something far older than conscious thought itself. It is nothing less than the fundamental current that has skillfully guided all the great mystics, the visionary inventors, the passionate artists, and the transformative visionaries throughout human history. It is the core part of you that was never deliberately conditioned, never intentionally programmed, and never fundamentally broken in any irreparable way. It has simply been skillfully waiting for you to consciously remember its profound existence. Other people will spontaneously begin to notice that something has subtly shifted about you. They may not fully know or consciously understand what it is, but they will invariably feel it in some way. You will consciously speak far less, but somehow intuitively say more. You will often be far more physically still, but consciously feel far more alive. You will skillfully walk into otherwise neutral rooms and subtly shift the entire atmosphere without consciously trying, not necessarily because you have become someone entirely different, but simply because you have consciously remembered who you truly were long before they deliberately taught you to unconsciously forget. Consciously walking between the worlds does not mean that you attempt to float above the ordinary challenges of everyday life. It emphatically means that you skillfully live your unique life far more deeply and more authentically. You still consciously pay bills, intentionally go to work, and consistently meet looming deadlines. But something transformative has invariably shifted. You are no longer solely driven by the fear-based need to survive. You are now skillfully guided by innate clarity. You now begin to consciously understand that the vast majority of other people's incessant chaos actively comes from unconsciously ignoring the very subtle signals that they were inherently born to trust. And while you alone cannot possibly change their distinct individual path, your purposeful presence can subtly spark profound remembrance within countless others. You essentially become the clear mirror that they did not even consciously realize they truly needed. This is the very essence of the quiet power that ancient masters so painstakingly encoded within their subtle teachings, not primarily the ability to somehow escape the complex challenges of life, but the inherent ability to purposefully see completely through it, to consciously walk with both feet gracefully planted on the ground, but with your conscious vision skillfully anchored in the expansive unseen realms to expertly navigate. So, the heart of everything we've explored here is about remembering that you already possess the innate ability to see beyond the surface, to trust your intuition, and to connect with a deeper truth. It's about reclaiming your sight and stepping into a world where awareness, not distraction, guides your path. This journey of inner vision is a powerful and transformative one, and it's a journey we can all take together. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Have you ever experienced moments of heightened intuition or felt a disconnect from the accepted narrative? Share your insights, ask your questions, or simply join the conversation in the comments below. Let's learn and grow together. And if you found this exploration inspiring and want to delve deeper into these topics with me, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future content. Let's continue to awaken our inner vision and create a world built on awareness and authentic connection. Thanks for watching.